In this French Connections, we'll take you to an arrondissement of Paris that's often squished between the Louvre-focused first and the Marais.
Today, we're in the second arrondissement of Paris, home to the charming Rue Montorgueil, incredible glass-covered arcades, and once upon a time, historically, the most luxurious brothels in the capital.
Join us as we explore Paris's smallest and most eclectic arrondissement, le deuxième.
The second arrondissement is probably most famous for Le Sentier, the historic garment district.
Thanks to its location smack in the center of Paris, it's been at the heart of the French textile industry for centuries.
Fabric and wholesale clothing stores still line the streets of the second, even today.
Now, back in the Middle Ages, Le Sentier was considered one of the most dangerous neighborhoods of the capital, but it's come a long way since then. Once upon a time, the Sentier was a slum so dangerous even the police wouldn't venture there. The neighborhood got a major facelift in the 19th century during Baron Haussmann's renovation of Paris. Many of the new streets were named after Emperor Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in 1798, such as Rue d'Aboukir, Rue du Caire, and Rue du Nil. It was during the Napoleonic Empire that Le Sentier became the supplier of the luxury fashion industry. For decades, the streets were lined with merchants and craftspeople, catering to the needs of seamstresses, dressmakers, and tailors. Young women working in fashion, les midinettes, adopted Saint Catherine as their patron saint, and each year would lay flowers on a statue located in Le Sentier. Cheap rents in the neighborhood also drew in waves of immigrants fleeing conflict around the world. For these poor new arrivals, the easiest place to find work was the vibrant garment industry. Over the years, Eastern European and North African entrepreneurs made Le Sentier the ready-to-wear capital of Europe and a lively multicultural neighborhood.
On vous parle du Sentier, ça évoque quoi pour vous?
Plein de monde qui grouille un peu partout, des chariots qui passent un peu à droite à gauche.
On a vraiment ici la palette de toutes les dimensions du métier.
Ça représente des articles branchés à la mode, relativement pas trop chers.
Ça remue, on sent qu'il y a la vie.
In the 90s, it became known as an immigrant's El Dorado, thanks to hit prêt-à-porter brands that put the Sentier on the map internationally.
Le Sentier est un emplacement important parce que c'est un carrefour de la mode mondiale. Il n'est pas un détaillant dans le monde, le plus important soit-il, qui ne vienne pas au moins une fois par an au Sentier.
The arrival of fast fashion from China led to the decline of the Sentier's textile industry, but the area continues to attract entrepreneurs. The past 30 years have seen the arrival of data centers, startups, and the Paris Bitcoin headquarters. They were brought in by the great internet access already set up for the stock exchange and the French news agency Agence France-Presse.
C'est le quartier de France où le débit est le meilleur, tout simplement, où la vitesse d'exécution d'Internet est la plus rapide.
All this has given the area its new name, Silicon Sentier, which continues to be a vibrant frontier.
True to its working-class roots, the Rue Saint-Denis, where we are right now, has remained on the fringes of all the gentrification that's been taking place in the second in recent years.
Rue Saint-Denis is actually one of the oldest streets in the capital. The route was laid out by the Romans in the 1st century, but from the Middle Ages up until today, it's been a notorious place of prostitution.
And in the early 1900s, the neighborhood became infamous for having some of the most luxurious brothels in Paris.
At the turn of the 20th century, Paris was the world capital of pleasure. During the Belle Époque, there were some 200 licensed brothels in the capital. They were known as les maisons closes, or closed houses. Prostitution in Paris was not just tolerated, but legal and regulated. High-end courtesans called cocottes were registered with the police and had regular medical checkups. The most prestigious brothel was Le Chabanais, and its most famous client was the future King of England, Edward VII. He became infamous for his 3-person sex chair and tub full of champagne. But thousands more prostitutes worked the streets illegally. They frequented cafes and bars, living on in French culture through works by Toulouse-Lautrec and Édouard Manet. Émile Zola's hit novel Nana detailed the rise and fall of a streetwalker who becomes a high-class cocotte. Parisian brothels were officially banned in 1946, but their legacy still echoes in street names today. Rue Gratte-Cul, or Ass Scratcher, was renamed Rue du Soube after a revolutionary killed nearby. And Rue Tire-Boudin, or Sausage Pull, is now Rue Mary Stuart. The story goes that it was renamed after the Queen of Scots when she asked her young French husband, Francis II, the name of the street, and he was too embarrassed to tell her.
The second arrondissement is also home to the capital's largest concentration of passages couverts, covered passageways.
These 19th century glass roof arcades were the precursor to today's indoor shopping malls.
And we're going to find out more about their history with Paris Muse guide Julien Savadou.
Bonjour, Julien.
Bonjour, Genie. Bonjour, Flo.
Okay, I'm confused. We're not in a covered passageway at all, and we're not even in the second arrondissement. Why are we starting our tour here?
Yes, we're not even in the second arrondissement, but we are where the covered passageway started. So we're at the Palais Royal. The palais is just behind us. It was the property of the Orleans family, La Famille d'Orléans, before the French Revolution, and they had a beautiful covered passageway built here, built in wood and covered in glass. There were shops, there were cafes. People would come here to hang out, to have fun, and to shop. And really, this served as a model for the passageways we're going to see.
So what happened?
It was replaced by a second version of the passageway in the mid-19th century, and then it was knocked down by the State Council, le Conseil d'État, in 1935 because it blocked the view over the garden just behind us.
So now, today, most of the covered passageways are in the second arrondissement?
Most of them are in the second arrondissement, that's right.
Let's go have a look.
Yeah, let's go. So we're here in Passage des Panoramas, the oldest passageway in Paris, built in 1799, and it's named after a beautiful display. Parisians were drawn here to marvel at large screens showing views of Paris and the countryside, the ancestor of the movie theater, basically. You can see shop signs hanging from the walls, and they would let people, patrons, know what they were in for in this covered passageway.
Back in the day, there were about 150 of these covered passageways. Nowadays, there are about 30. Why are so many of them here in the second arrondissement?
Because they were built between the Palais Royal, the central Paris, really, the central neighborhoods of Paris. And the city developed from Palais Royal up north. So the city grew in circles. And so this area here in the second was developed all throughout the 19th century.
And you're saying Passage des Panoramas has now become very chic?
Very chic, very trendy. Lots of cafes have opened in the Passage, and it's now one of the trendiest passages to come have a drink and have dinner.
And now we're going to go see actually the one that's known as the most famous passageway in Paris, right?
Most famous and probably one of the most beautiful, Galerie Vivienne.
Let's go.
Wow, this one feels completely different.
We're in what is probably the most beautiful covered passageway in all of the city. Galerie Vivienne, inaugurated in 1826, and we're in a very upscale, opulent covered passageway. If you look up at the ceiling, it's glass and metal. It sheds natural light into here. And if you look at the floor, it's covered in mosaics. It's filled with independent designers, beautiful shops, luxury shops, clothing stores, art galleries, and also a very old bookshop.
And if you're stuck in Paris on a rainy day, this is a great place to visit.
It's a great place to visit on a rainy day. It's a shelter from the rain and from the dust. It was built for that reason. And back in the day, in the 19th century, ladies would come here to shop. It was also lit up at night.
And there's so many incredible details as well all over the place.
Beautiful details. If you pay attention in the gallery, you will find the cornucopia and the caduceus of God Hermes, which is a symbol of abundance and prosperity. Paris became the new capital of luxury in the 19th century.
It certainly is, still is today. Julian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up our tour of Paris's second arrondissement here in the Bourse neighborhood. This building right here was once home to the Paris Stock Exchange.
It was built by Napoleon Bonaparte in the early 19th century and used as a trading floor until the 1980s. These days, it's used as an event center.
And fun fact, it was home to Team USA during the 2024 Paris Olympics.
USA. Thank you so much for joining us on this tour of the second arrondissement of Paris, and we'll see you soon for another show on another neighborhood of the capital.